So let us look at the ethics paper, the syllabus, and the sources, and of course how we are going to proceed with the syllabus also. So first of all, we have to start with the why UPSC included this ethics paper in our syllabus, because unless and until we understand the reasons, it becomes difficult to understand the essence of this paper also. Why did UPSC include this paper in our syllabus? So in 1990s, UPSC has made changes to the mains question paper. They have included mostly what we call this science optionals: mechanical engineering, medical science, all of them were included, mathematics and all of them. So what was the outcome? The outcome was that those who were getting into civil services simply did not have the necessary aptitude, that means knowledge, or the attitude, that means values, that are necessary for civil services. They did not have either the aptitude or the values. That was the reason why, in spite of the fact that they were very intelligent, when they go to the field level, they proved to be a failure because they did not have the necessary administrative experience. They did not have the necessary administrative experience. And more importantly, they also did not have the necessary values for them to be successful at the field level. Because at the end of the day, administration is all about empathy. Administration is all about having the necessary values. So then UPSC recognized this fact also. They have appointed various committees to suggest reforms. So in 2001, YK Alak Committee has suggested reforms in the recruitment process. As part of the reforms, it has recommended that these optionals should be removed, because they are not serving any purpose as far as recruiting right kind of personnel is concerned. And it has also recommended that the values that are needed for civil services must be tested, because civil services require a lot of values. They needed a lot of values. You might have immense knowledge, unless and until you have the necessary values, you will not be able to become successful at the field level. You will not be able to become successful at the field level. And that was the reason why this YK Alak Committee has said that please test the values that are needed. But again, as we know, within the government, things move very slowly. These recommendations were not implemented by UPSC for a long period of time. Finally, in 2011, UPSC has implemented some of the recommendations. They removed the optional from the prelims, replaced it with CSAT. Again, UPSC kept on getting complaints from these training institutions. These training institutions like Labasna, Lal Bahadur Shastri National Academy of Administration, then training institutions like this SVP NPA, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel National Police Academy, then IT Income Tax Academy, Nagpur, Income Tax Academy, Nagpur. So what all these training institutions have complained to UPSC, especially Labasna and SVP NPA. They complained that those who are getting into services, they do not possess the necessary values for them to be successful in civil services. They simply do not have the necessary values. On top of it, average age of a person getting into civil services is around 28 years. At this age, 28 years, your personality is fully developed. Personality is fully developed. That is the reason why, as we study in administration also, recruitment should always be done at a very young age. For the simple reason that if people are recruited at very young age, you can change, you can mold their personalities according to the needs of the organization. So Labasna and SVP NPA have complained that on one hand, the average age is very high. On the other hand, at this age, it all becomes almost impossible for these training institutions to inculcate the right kind of values among civil servants. Right kind of values among civil servants. To inculcate right kind of values among civil servants. Then what did they do? They have requested UPSC that please do something. Because the problem is that during this training for IAS and IPS officers, they don't take this training seriously. Why they don't take training seriously? Because before they go to these training institutions, everything is decided. Their rank, their service, their cadre. So whatever may be their performance during training, it will have no impact on their career advancement. Everything is decided. Even though they are called probationary officers, they are on a probation, but in reality, they are permanent only. Because this training is always considered as a paid holiday by the officers. So when these institutions, they try to teach the necessary values to the officers during training, what happened? They never really bothered to learn those values. Why? Because their performance during training has no impact on their career advancement. So they never really bothered to learn the values. And that is the reason why when they go to the field, they prove to be a failure. They prove to be a failure when they go to the field. Because they don't have the necessary values to become successful. They simply don't have the necessary values to become successful. So these training institutions have requested UPSC, please do something about the recruitment process. And before that, there were so many committees that were appointed also. We had PC Hota committee, and then Second Administrative Reforms Commission. All these committees have suggested that let UPSC change the recruitment process. And all of them have suggested that let UPSC test the values that are necessary. Because if you have to become successful as a district administrator, what is needed for you to become successful as a district administrator? Not at all. Nothing is required. You don't require the knowledge of the constitution. You don't require the knowledge of law. You don't require the knowledge of economy. You don't require the knowledge of international relations. The only thing that is needed is you must have the values. Empathy. Empathy. You must have values. This is what Ashok Khemka has said. When Ashok Khemka, India's most honest civil servant, was asked what is needed for a civil servant to be successful at the ground level. Does he need knowledge of constitution or law or economy or society or geography or international relations? He said that no, none of them are needed. The only thing that is needed is only one thing, that is values. That is what he said. The only thing that is needed is values. But the question here is that is UPSC testing them on those values? That is where the problem. They are not. They are not testing them on the values. And whatever that is being tested is not necessary from service point of view. They are tested on economy, polity, geography, history, so on and so forth, which is not necessary when they go to the field level, when you are working as a collector or a superintendent of police. That is when these commissions, Second Administrative Reforms Commission, PC Hota Committee, have recommended that UPSC make changes to the mains syllabus also. And finally, after all the recommendations of these committees, in the year 2013, UPSC made changes to the main syllabus. in the year 2013. What are the changes they have made? They have removed one optional. They have removed one optional and replaced that optional with two more compulsory papers of general studies. Replace that optional with two more compulsory papers of general studies. And one of those papers they have included was ethics. One of the papers they have included was ethics. On the basis of the recommendations of all these commissions and committees, and also on the basis of the demands of the profession. As we keep on saying, what is needed for civil servants is only values. So if you want to recruit right kind of people, you have to make sure that people with the necessary attitudes, necessary values, more importantly necessary knowledge about administration. Aptitude means skills and knowledge. Attitude means values. Because all of them are going to be administrators, the minimum they are expected to have is knowledge of administration. Because if you look at other papers of general studies, they are not testing their practical knowledge of administration. They are not being tested about their knowledge of administration. They are not tested. That is the reason why UPSC wanted to make sure that those who are getting into those services must have the necessary practical knowledge of administration, that is what is called aptitude, and also the necessary values that are needed for them to be successful at the field level. And that is the reason why they have included this ethics paper in our syllabus. And they have given a very good weightage also, 250 marks for this paper. This was done in 2013. In the last 11 years, we have seen in this ethics paper so many changes are taking place. And mostly the changes are going in depth into practical aspects of administration. Average score in ethics paper, except for 1 or 2 years, out of 250 marks is around 85-90 marks. People are getting only maximum 85-90 marks. Why? Why? Simple reason is they don't have a practical knowledge of administration, which is what the UPSC is expecting from you. And this is the reason why this paper becomes extremely important from our mains point of view. As we keep on saying, if you have to clear the main examination and get into top services, after 2013 when UPSC made changes, what is the scenario? The scenario is that if you have to clear the main examination, if you have to clear the examination and get into top 100 ranks, three things will become very important. First one is your optional. You have to score at least 280 to 300 marks. And the second one is your ethics paper, where you have to score at least 120 to 130 marks. And third one is your essay paper. Again, you have to score at least 120 to 130 marks. These three are the ones that will determine your success in the UPSC examination. People have this misconception that the most important subjects in UPSC examinations are polity, economy, geography and history. Why people don't clear the examination? These are all the misconceptions. They think that polity, economy, history and geography are the most important subjects, and they spend a lot of time on all these things. If you look at in the main examination, what is the weightage of these subjects? Polity, you have 125 marks. Economy, you have 100 marks. And geography and history around combined together around 170 marks. So 125 plus 100, 225 plus 175, it will be around 400 marks. 400 marks. And what is the total marks in main examination? 4 papers of GS 1000 marks, essay 250 marks, and optional 500 marks, 1750. 1750. Out of the 1750, what is the contribution of this polity, economy, geography and history? 400 marks. 400 marks. That means less than 1/4. On the other hand, what is the most important here? Optional, 500 marks. Both of them, 500 marks. That is 1000 marks. Ethics and essay combined together, 500 marks. And optional, 500 marks. That is total 1000 marks. Even if you don't write anything for these things, you will still get into services. Even if you don't prepare anything for polity or economy, history or geography, you will still be there in services. On the other hand, if you don't do these things, well, you will never be there in services. That is what the problem. People have so many misconceptions about the UPSC preparation. What is the reason why average age of a person getting into services is so high? 28 years. When you're starting your preparation at the age of 21, why is it taking 7 years for you to prepare or clear the examination? Because first 4 years you'll be doing only these things. Please remember, they are very important for your prelims. But clearing the prelims, will you get any gold medal? You will not get any gold medal if you clear the prelims. As we see, prelims is only a qualifying examination. That means, whatever the score you get in prelims does not really matter in your selection. And all of them combined together is only having around 400 marks. And these three things, optional, ethics and essay combined together, you have 1000 marks. And imagine here you are getting these kind of marks. Here 300 in optional and around 130, 130, 260 here. 560 marks. Only here. And 760 marks you will get into services. 200 marks in all other papers combined together will be more than sufficient. That is what you have to remember. That is what you have to remember. That is the reason why what you have to focus on for your main examination, only these three things. Once you are thorough with these things, everything else can come. Once you are thorough with these things. And that is the reason why this ethics paper become very important. It becomes extremely important from your examination point of view. Whether you are getting into services or not will be determined, will be influenced, will be decided by your performance in ethics paper. And the problem is that in this coaching, what happens is that they don't give that much importance to ethics paper. Normally they don't teach also ethics paper. Why? Because this ethics paper requires in-depth knowledge of practical aspects of administration. Because that is what UPSC wants to see, whether you have that kind of knowledge or not. So, in the name of ethics, in the coaching institutes, they teach either philosophy or they teach a little bit of social issues, but they never teach ethics. And of course, they don't know even what is public administration also, because all the questions are about administration. And that is the reason why, the success rate in UPSC examination is only, at the end of the day, 0.01%. 0.01%. That means, out of 10,000 who apply, only 1% get into services. Last year, 13 lakh people have applied. Around 1,000 got into services. Right? So, if you are preparing, you must be keeping in these things in consideration. Because once you clear the prelims, you should be clearing the mains and you should be getting into services also. And this is how you should be doing those things. So, now that we have understood the significance of this ethics, let us look at the syllabus of ethics. Let us look at the syllabus of ethics. And the best part of this ethics paper from UPSC preparation point of view, and the best part of ethics paper from UPSC point of view is that the syllabus is very less, and you can complete it in a very less amount of time. And once you understand the spirit of the syllabus, you can easily score marks also, unlike other things. For example, take the case of a subject like world geography. You can be reading as much as you want, but at the end of the day, are you confident about any of the questions that you have studied coming in the examination? Are you confident about any of the questions that you will be studying in world history coming in the examination? The first 7-8 years they have not asked a single question from world history. But people will study a lot of all these things because they don't know what to study and what not to study. They don't know, simply. That is the reason why this paper becomes very important. So let us look into the syllabus of this ethics paper. As you have the syllabus with you, the first topic starts with ethics and human interface. When UPSC has formulated the syllabus, you must give a compliment to UPSC. Why? Because they have formulated the syllabus with so much of care. They take into consideration even the micro details also while formulating the syllabus. The objective of formulating this syllabus is to make sure that the candidates must understand the essence of human life. They should understand the essence of human life. They must know, the essence of human life. Why we have come onto this earth, and what should we do before we leave this earth? How to become a good human being. That should be the essence of human life. How to become a good human being. Because when we take birth, we are neither good nor bad. It is the circumstances around us. It is the people around us. It is the institutions around us that will determine our value systems. That is the reason why this first topic was included. Ethics and human interface. How this interactions between the human beings would ultimately determine the ethics of a society. Ethics and human interface. If you look at this, it says that the essence, determinants and consequences of ethics in human actions. Essence, determinants and consequences of ethics in human actions. So what are we saying here? What is the essence of ethics here? The topic says that what is the essence of ethics, right? And what does ethics basically try to teach us? And why do we need this ethics? What is the need? What is the reason why we must have ethics in our human life? Then, what are the determinants of ethics? That means, how ethics in a society are, determined. How ethics in the society are determined. What do you mean by that? For example, the value systems, the traditions and cultures. How they are determined in a society. For example, look at the Western societies. Their ethical systems are completely different from the Eastern societies. What is the reason why? Ultimately, what really determines ethics in a society? And which one is good and which one is bad? There is nothing like something is absolutely good and something completely bad. You cannot say that Western societies have the best of the value systems. And you cannot say that Eastern societies have mostly outdated traditions and customs culture. That is what the Western countries would always say. When the Britishers occupied India, the reason they had given was it was a white man's burden to reform this Indian society. saying that Indians simply don't have culture or traditions or ethics. And they believe that their society can teach those things to the rest of the world. And that is the reason why the other day you have seen a Nobel Prize in Economics is given to three important thinkers. And they have conducted a survey about the institutions. And they have also mentioned that when this process of colonization has taken place, in some countries these imperial powers have introduced different kinds of institutions. In some other countries they have introduced completely exploitative institutions. The reasons also they have given there. In countries like Canada, they have introduced institutions which were there in their own countries, because they went there and settled there. Britishers, they settled in Canada, they settled in America. Whereas in African countries and also in India, their objective was not to stay here forever. Their objective was basically to exploit the country. And that is the reason why they have created institutions which were mostly exploitative in nature. And after independence, we say that we continued with the same exploitative institutions. And they have also created the value systems which are again exploitative in nature. And after independence, we continued with those value systems. What we call it as popularly colonial attitudes. That is the reason why these topics are included in our syllabus. What really determines the ethical norms in the societies, and what are the consequences of ethics in human actions. That means, if you are a good person, what would be the impact on the society? On the other hand, if a society has exploitative traditions and customs, how it is going to impact the society? For example, take the case of India. In India, we have different types of ethical norms, which are really good, which can be bad also. For example, if you look at the good aspects of Indian society for thousands of years has been what you call open, tolerant, inclusive society. Christianity for the first time had come to India before going to other countries. Similarly, this Jewish religion, when the Jews were persecuted all over the world, it was India that gave shelter to the Jewish community. That is what we say. India has this kind of traditions and customs. Open, tolerant, inclusive. It does not mean that we have only good traditions and customs. We also have bad. For example, untouchability. Unfortunately, untouchability. Then discrimination on the basis of caste. And then other bad traditions like dowry. These are all the things which are bad and which have impacted human actions. Even after 5,000 years also, we have not been able to overcome this kind of what is called caste discrimination. 75 years of reservations have not been able to remove this caste discrimination, because it is there for 5,000 years. What has been going on for 5,000 years? Can it be overcome in 75 years? That is what the bad. And this dowry and also untouchability. Even now also it is practiced in some of, in fact most of the villages also. And discrimination against women, patriarchal societies. All of them determine human actions. That is what we say, consequences of ethics in human actions. Then dimensions of ethics. What are different dimensions of ethics? For example, we talk about deontological ethics, teleological ethics, virtue ethics. Like this, we will talk about the different dimensions of ethics. Deontological ethics means something is considered good when the means you are using them are good. Deont means duty. Whereas on the opposite side, we have a teleological ethics, which say that the ends justify means. That means if you are a Robin Hood, you can take money from the rich people and distribute that money to the poor people. In the process, you can cause harm to the rich people also. Ultimately, your actions are determined on the basis of your consequences. So what Robinhood does is good, because the outcome, end, telos means ends. Outcome is always good. That is the reason why we have so much of debate about these things, including this year the question was also asked about this. So this is where you'll be studying about the dimensions of ethics. Next, ethics in private and public relationships. This is a very important topic. Ethics in private and public relationships. So what are we saying here? For example, what do we say here is that what you do in private and what you do in public, both of them have a interrelation to each other, interlinkages. There are some people who believe that your private life will not impact your public actions. There are some others who believe that both of them are interlinked. For example, in your personal life, you are known for your drinking habits, and tomorrow you are appointed as a district collector in say Bihar, where prohibition is implemented, but you are fond of drinking. Can you implement prohibition? Definitely not. So that is what we talk about, ethics in private and public relationships. Can you implement it? In your personal life, you have no respect for women, but as a district collector, you have to implement programs that would empower women. Will you be able to do that? That is the reason why these topics are included. In your personal life, you practice untouchability, caste discrimination, but as a district collector, you will be expected to implement those laws that prohibit discrimination and untouchability. Will you be able to do that? That's the reason why these topics are included. Basically, all these topics are included to test, to evaluate your personality. Then the next topic is human values. Lessons from the lives and teachings of great leaders, reformers and administrators. Lessons from the lives and teachings of great leaders, reformers and administrators. A very good number of questions are asked only from this topic. Here you will be discussing all philosophers. You will be starting with the Western philosophers. Starting with these philosophers like Aristotle, Epicurus, Thomas Aquinas. Then we have philosophers like very important ones, Jeremy Bentham, and we have political philosophers, moral philosophers, Immanuel Kant, a very, very important philosopher. Including this year, Immanuel Kant is asked almost every year. Very important philosopher. So you have to look at their philosophies, their teachings, and you have to also find out where you can apply those philosophies in your day-to-day life. Very important, because as we study with Aristotle, there is difference between what is called intelligence and wisdom. Intelligence means your ability to know and understand the things, and wisdom means your ability to put them into practice. All of us know what is good and what is wrong. All of us know what is good and what is wrong, but in our day-to-day life, do we implement those things? That is what we say. We have intelligence, but we don't have wisdom. That is the reason why learning the lessons and teachings from these great leaders and reformers and administrators is necessary, but not sufficient. Right? That is the reason why we will talk about them. Here we will be spending a lot of time because apart from the Western philosophers, we have to learn Indian philosophies also. For example, the most important philosophy, Indian philosophy, Hindu philosophy. You should know fully what is this Hindu philosophy. Why? Because every year, not only in our ethics paper, a very good number of essay topics are from Hindu philosophy. Normally we find that in these coaching institutes, they never teach Hindu philosophy. In the name of philosophy, they will teach something about Buddhism, something about Jainism, a little bit of Sikhism. But what about Hindu philosophy? Because all these other philosophies had come only from Hindu philosophy, all of them. So we should be spending a lot of time on this Hindu philosophy. Then role of family, society, educational institutions in inculcating values. As human beings, how do we learn our values? As human beings, we learn our values either by observing our parents, by observing our teachers in our childhood, and from the society. Society teaches us so many values. That is the reason why this topic is included. And that is the reason why, what do we say? If your upbringing is good, if your family is good, automatically you will also inculcate good values. For example, take the case, father is an inspector in the police, but you are living in a big mansion, and you are having huge amount of money, which clearly shows that your father is corrupt. So tomorrow when you become old, when you become young, what are the chances of you becoming honest? Very less. That is the reason why family becomes very important. Family becomes important. If parents are good, there is no guarantee that children will be good. On the other hand, if they are bad, there is every possibility that children will always be bad also. That is the reason why Abdul Kalam has said that parents, they are the most important people in the life of children, because as children we learn our values only by observing our parents. That is the reason why this topic is included. Next topic, attitude. As you can see, the next topic, attitude, content, structure, function. Its influence and relation with thought and behavior, moral and political attitudes, social influence and persuasion. Again, why did UPSC include this topic in our syllabus? Why did they include this topic in our syllabus? As we keep on saying all the time, the most important reason why our bureaucracy is inefficient is because it suffers from colonial attitudes. It suffers from colonial attitudes. Right? What is this colonial attitude? They believe that they are the masters, and they believe that they must be treating people as their servants. This attitude was deliberately inculcated by the Britishers among Indian civil servants. In those days, it was notoriously known as ICS, Imperial Civil Service. Unfortunately, after 75 years also, this bureaucracy suffers from the same colonial attitudes. They have only self-interest and nothing else. The most important reason why people are getting into civil services is to make their life much more easier, comfortable, and luxurious. Nobody has that kind of attitude to serve the society. Selfless attitude. As you could see here, the other day, Telangana High Court also came down heavily on 4 IAS officers. It has said that you call yourself All India Service Officers, and what is the problem for you to go to the neighboring state and work there? And you say that when you join the services, you say that you are willing to work anywhere in the country, being All India Service. You are not willing to go to even your neighboring state also. And the state government also, High Court also has come down heavily on the state government. What do you mean by these 4 offices are important for you? You mean to say that the entire state of Telangana depends only on these 4 offices? You must be ashamed of yourself when you say that they are very critical for you. The objective of civil services is to depoliticize or personalize the entire administrative systems. Whoever may be the officer, he should be able to work according to rules and regulations. How can you say that they are very important? This is where the problem. The problem is that those who are getting into services simply do not have the necessary values. And that is the reason why what UPSC has done is that they have included this topic in our syllabus. Attitude, content, structure, function. Basically, what kind of attitudes that are necessary for civil services? How these attitudes is formed? What is the relation of this attitude with thought and behavior? What are the factors that influence attitude among human beings? Emotions, values, ideologies. These are all the factors that determine attitude among the people. And this attitude in turn will influence their behavior and actions also. For example, if I like you as a person, my attitude towards will be positive. When my attitude towards is positive, my behavior towards will be more constructive. If you are committing any kind of mistake, I will try to take it in a positive manner. I will try to help you to overcome it. On the other hand, if you are committing any mistake and if I don't like you, I will punish you. That is what you can see among the parents also. That is the reason this attitude becomes important. What are the moral attitudes that a person must possess for him to be called a good human being? That is the reason why this topic, moral attitude, is included in the syllabus. Next, political attitudes, a very important topic again. This political attitude is very important. Why? Because ultimately it is this political attitude that will determine the function of a democracy. For example, in India, this political attitude is dominated by emotions and sentiments. People vote in the name of religion, caste or region, or reservations or subsidies. They never vote in the name of performance. And that is the reason why political parties also need not worry about fulfilling the promises they made at the time of elections. They know that they can easily influence them through these kind of attitudes. That is the reason why this topic was included. Social influence and persuasion. Basically, you are talking about how a civil servant can become successful at the field level when he is facing so many problems. Because when the government is formulating a policy, as a civil servant, it is your job to implement a policy. But the question here is that if you are implementing the policy, it can be successful only when there is participation of people. And the participation of people depends on their attitude. And your job is to persuade them to participate. For example, something like Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. Can it be successful without participation of the people? For that, you must persuade the people to understand the significance of these schemes and programs. That is the reason why these things are included in our syllabus. A very important topic. Next topic in our syllabus, aptitude and foundational values for civil services. Aptitude and foundational values for civil services. Integrity, impartiality, non-partisanship, objectivity, dedication to public service, empathy, tolerance and compassion towards the weaker sections. This topic again was included by UPSC because they wanted the candidates to know about the values that they must possess for them to be successful at the field level. For them to be successful at the field level. As I keep on saying, you may have any amount of knowledge. You can quote all the articles of the Constitution from first article to 440 article. You can quote all the amendments. You can quote all the rules and regulations, everything, but at the end of the day, none of them will be useful unless and until you have certain values. What are those values? You must have integrity. You must have honesty. You should be impartial. You should be non-partisan. You should be objective. You must dedicate yourself to public service. You must have empathy. You must have tolerance. And of course, compassion towards weaker sections. Here, UPSC has given only 5 or 6 values. But we will be studying at least 24, 25 values, which are necessary. Next topic, emotional intelligence. Concepts, their utilities and application in administration and governance. This is what we keep on saying all the time, as we have been saying also. This IQ is necessary but not at all sufficient. This IQ is necessary but not at all sufficient. You might have as much intelligence as you want, but at the end of the day, it may not be sufficient. Why? Because you should know how to deal with people. You are a district collector, suddenly tomorrow 10,000 people comes to your house, in front of your house, start protesting against you, against some of the decisions that you have taken. So you must have that kind of emotional intelligence to understand their concerns. You must have the skills of persuasion, social skills, to explain to them your position. On the other hand, what else will the civil servants do? Immediately, when these kind of protests are there, immediately they will call the SP as a district collector. He will call the superintendent of police and say that clear this crowd immediately. There will be lathi charge. There will be tear gas shells, water cannons, rubber bullets, and finally firing also. That is what is called colonial attitude. But that kind of thing will not be working. What is required is emotional intelligence, because that is the most important thing that is needed in administration and governance. That is the reason why for almost half of the case studies we are writing about emotional intelligence. For half of the case studies, for example, this year a case study was asked about you being a superintendent of police, going into the forest, nabbing the Naxal leaders. Suddenly you have come across 500 women demanding the release of Naxals. That is where you need emotional intelligence. You cannot call them as anti-national and start firing on them. You cannot use your brute force on them. Since they have benefited from these Naxal leaders, they believed that these Naxal leaders are good, because the government did not come to their rescue. You have to explain to them what these Naxal leaders have done, what kind of damage they have caused to the government. You have to explain to them that the government is there only for them, for their welfare. You have to persuade them. That is where you talk about emotional intelligence. On the other hand, just because you have the force, can you start firing on them? No, because it's a democracy. The job of the police is not to kill people. The job of the army is not to kill people, but to protect their lives. That is where emotional intelligence becomes important. Next, contributions of moral thinkers and philosophers from India and the world. Contributions of moral thinkers and philosophers from India and the world. And this topic normally we will be doing along with the first chapter only, lessons from the lives of teachings of great leaders, reformers and administrators. This is where we will be talking about, as I said, from Epicurus, we will be talking about at least 8 to 10 Western philosophers, and then we will be talking about the political philosophers. We will be talking about economic philosophers, moral, political, economic, and administrative philosophers. We will be talking about all of them from India and the world. Next topic is public civil services values and ethics. Public and civil service values and ethics in public administration. in public administration. Status and problems. Ethical concerns and dilemmas in government and private institutions. Laws, rules, regulations and conscience as sources of ethical guidance. Accountability and ethical governance. Strengthening of ethical and moral values in governance, ethical issues in international relations and funding and corporate governance. These last two topics require in-depth knowledge of public administration. These last two topics. As I keep on saying, the only reason why students don't get marks in this ethics critical paper is they don't have knowledge of public administration. They simply don't have any knowledge of public administration. And as I keep on saying again, in coaching institutes, they never focus on these aspects. And that is the reason why you don't find them students getting good marks. If you look at this topic, it starts with values and ethics in public administration. You have to talk about why do we need the values and ethics in public administration. Why should administrators have values? Why? For the simple reason that countries like India have inherited what we call them as Weberian bureaucracies. And what is the problem with these Weberian bureaucracies? These Weberian bureaucracies focus only on the concept of value neutrality. They focus only on the concept of value neutrality. And what is the problem here? This value neutral bureaucracy has completely failed to bring about the much needed socio and economic transformation of our society. That is the reason why even after 75 years of our independence, we still could not overcome the growing inequalities in our societies. Growing inequalities, social and economic. Why? Because our civil servants simply do not have the necessary values. They don't have the values. I told you, I gave you the example. You can implement programs that can help in removing untouchability only when you have the values of equality and equity. You can implement programs that would empower women only when you have empathy towards the problems of women. That is the reason why this topic is included. That is why it is included. What is the present status and what are the problems in inculcating values? What is the present status and what are the problems in inculcating values? Next, ethical concerns and dilemmas in government and private institutions. The moment you get into civil services, every day you face this kind of ethical dilemmas. What are the ethical dilemmas that you face? For example, should you be following the rules and regulations, or should you be realizing the outcomes? This is the most important dilemma you face as a civil servant on a day-to-day basis. The government, on the one hand, it says that you should focus on outcomes. On the other hand, if you violate rules and regulations, you will be suspended. CAG will find fault with you and you will be suspended. What should you do? For example, the case studies that keep on asking all the time, including this year. For example, an old woman comes to your house in the middle of the night. She is not carrying any documents to prove that she is very poor. But looking at her, you can see that she is very poor. Should you be helping her or not? Without any valid documents, helping her means you are doing something illegal. If you don't help her, it is unethical. What should you do? That is the dilemma you face all the time. Similarly, your superior has given you an order which is completely unethical, illegal. If you don't implement, you will be suspended by superior. If you implement, completely unethical and illegal. This is what happened in the state of Andhra Pradesh. Three senior IPS officers were suspended recently by the government. Very senior IPS officers of the rank of SP. and IG also. Why? They have blindly followed their political masters, filed cases against Bollywood actors because they wanted to protect a big businessman. And they said that they got the orders from the Chief Minister's office. And most of these orders are only oral. There is no proof. Now they are the ones who are being suspended and they are the ones who will be sent to jail. Politicians will happily live because they say that we did not give any orders. Show us the proof. And if you don't follow them, you will be suspended. That is the reason why people think that getting into services is great. No. The moment you get into services, every day you will have challenges, especially when you are a very honest, committed, efficient officer. Most of our students are not given any postings also. Why? Because they are very honest officers. The government cannot afford honest officers. On the other hand, there are so many officers who are willing to dance to the tunes of the politicians. That is what they do. They sell their conscience for a few positions within the government. And that is the bane of our democracy and bureaucracy. We don't have honest officers who can withstand political pressure. We don't have courageous officers who can speak truth to power. That means go to the minister and tell him that what you are doing is wrong. Speaking truth to power. We don't have. In the government of India, there are 90 secretaries. There is not even one secretary in the government of India. It is said that there is not even one secretary in the government of India who has the courage to tell the political executive that what they are doing is wrong. That is the difference between this Western democracies and Indian. That is what these three economists who got Nobel Prize also have said. Institutions. We have not created institutions. We have not built institutions that can withstand political pressure. That is the difference. And institutions are very important for sustainable growth, rapid growth and development. They are very, very important. So that is what we say. And that is the reason why, these are all the dilemmas you face. Laws, rules, regulations and conscience as sources of ethical guidance. You can have as many laws, as many rules and as many regulations. At the end of the day, the most important source of your ethics is your own conscience. Because you know very well what you are doing is right or wrong. In the case that I am talking about, these three police officers, even before filing FIR against that woman, they have already booked their tickets to Bombay to arrest her, even before filing FIR. That is what is called unethical, illegal actions. That is the problem with our bureaucracy. Our bureaucracy is willing to sell their conscience, for few positions within the government. For few positions within the government. Nowadays, what the governments are doing, both central and state governments, they are using these post-retirement positions as incentives to politicize bureaucracy. Accountability and ethical governance. How to ensure accountability of administration. Strengthening of ethical and moral values in governance. How can we do that? Ethical issues and in international relations and funding. You can see that these developed countries always talk about good governance. They always talk about ethics. But when it comes to their own, they are always guided by self-interest. As you can see here, Israel receives huge amount of arms support from America. Iran is getting the same from Russia. Both of these countries want this Middle East to be burning all the time. because that will create huge amount of demand market for their defense industry, both in the public sector as well as in the private sector. America keeps on telling everyone that they must reduce their emissions. But what do they do in reality? Do they ever take any kind of measures? That is what Donald Trump has said in the recent election speech also. He said that he would give permissions to this power sector by removing all environmental clearances, so that they can generate more electricity, so that the price of electricity in America can come down by 50%. Already artificial intelligence uses huge amount of electricity, and it is causing huge amount of damage to ecological systems. But are these countries concerned? Never. That is why we talk about these things. Corporate governance. The basic problem here is that there is no what you call perfect competition anywhere else in the world. What you have is only imperfect competition in the form of monopolies and oligopolies. In the form of monopolies and oligopolies. And this is where the problem is. This is where the problem is. How to ensure corporate governance is what we have to look at. A very important topic. Next, probity in governance. Almost every alternative year, the question will be asked about probity in governance. A concept of public service, philosophical basis of governance and probity, information sharing and transparency in government, right to information, code of ethics, code of conduct, citizen charters, work culture, quality of service delivery mechanisms, utilization of public funds, and challenges of corruption. Again, this topic again requires in-depth knowledge of public administration, practical aspects of public administration, because maximum number of ethics case studies are only from this topic. Maximum number of ethics cases are from this topic. So it says probity in governance. What exactly is this probity in governance? Why should there be any probity in governance? Why should there be any honesty and integrity among the civil servants? Why should there be any discipline and professionalism among the civil servants? Why should there be any right conduct for civil servants? That is what we call probity in governance. What is this concept of public service? When you are joining civil services, you should know you are part of this public service. What do you mean by that? What are you supposed to do? What is the philosophical basis of governance and probity? That is where again we have to talk about the moral and political philosophers, people like Kautilya, who had talked about philosophical basis of governance. Transparency, very important. As we say, this probity can be ensured through transparency and accountability. That is the reason why we have right to information. As we study also, this right to information, transparency, is the master key to open the locks of good governance. Then you have code of ethics, code of conduct. The objective of code of ethics is to promote positive values, whereas the objective of a code of conduct is to prevent negative behavior. Then how to ensure participation of citizens in governance? With the help of citizen charters. Citizen charters are the instrument to ensure that participation of this citizens in governance. Then what is this work culture? Work culture. At the end of the day, this work culture is the one that ultimately determines the overall efficiency of its bureaucracy or its employees in any organization. So what do we say here? If you look at the work culture in India, unfortunately the work culture in India, especially within the bureaucracy, is not really great. It is characterized by red tapeism. It is characterized by a completely unsympathetic attitude towards the people. It is characterized by unnecessary and unwanted delays. It is characterized by excessive emphasis on rules and regulations. It is characterized by corruption and inefficiency. That is the reason why this topic is included. And it impacts the quality of service delivery mechanisms, ultimately leading to corruption also. Challenges of corruption. So we should know what is this corruption, why do we have so much of corruption, and we should also know, what is the solution to this problem of corruption also. All those solutions. So this is what the syllabus. And the next one is the case studies on above issues. Basically, again, why these case studies are included in our syllabus. Why they are included in our syllabus, case studies. Very simple reason. They are included in our syllabus because when you become an administrator, you must find the solutions to the problems then and there itself. As we study, administration is both science and art. There are certain principles, if you learn them, that makes you efficient as an administrator. But at the same time, this administrative ability is what is called an art also. Every year, 180 IAS officers will be undergoing similar kind of training in Lal Bahadur Shastri National Academy of Administration. 180 IAS officers. But out of them, very few turn out to be successful. If all of them have the same kind of knowledge, what is the reason why very few of them are successful? That talks about the art of administration. They have those administrative abilities. So when UPSC is recruiting you people into civil services, they would like to say whether you have those administrative abilities or not. They would like to see whether you have those administrative abilities or not. How to test whether you have those administrative abilities or not? Through this, what is called case study approach. What is this case study approach? They will give you some real life situations faced by the civil servants. And they would like to see whether you can come out with the solutions to those problems. Because administration is all about taking decisions and implementing those decisions. So whether you have the necessary administrative aptitude and administrative attitude to understand the problem and come out with solutions. Please remember, all these case studies need in-depth and practical knowledge of administration. All of them need in-depth and practical knowledge of administration. Again, that is also one of the reasons why at the end of the day students don't get good marks in ethics paper. And that is also the reason why you can see that every year most of the people who score very good marks in ethics paper are mostly invariably having a public administration optional. Last year also, one of our students only, she scored top marks, around 136 marks in ethics paper, whereas average marks was only 85 marks. 85 and 135. How many marks? 50 marks. And that is where, as I keep on saying, that is where it will be decided your service rank, cadre and everything else. You need in-depth knowledge of administration. Again, as I keep on saying, in most of the general studies coaching institutes, those who teach ethics simply do not have that administrative aptitude. That is the reason why when it comes to case studies, they don't teach much also. 125 marks case studies every year. And the same 125 marks are for polity. How many classes are taken for polity and how many classes are taken for ethics case studies? That is why people don't get into services. So this is what we are going to do as part of our classes. And what is the objective of our classes? The objective of our classes is that by the end of our classes, you must be in a position to you must be in a position to solve all the questions in section A and also in case studies on your own. Tomorrow also, if UPSC is to conduct examination, you should be able to get those 125, 130 marks. It does not mean that you have to spend a lot of time also. Maximum, we will complete the syllabus in around maximum 45 days. In a week, we will have 3 to 4 classes. And we'll complete the syllabus in 45 days. It does not require much of a time also. Because once you know what to study, you will not be studying mostly unnecessary, unwanted things. That is the most important thing. UPSC examination is all about knowing what not to study than what to study. If you know what you don't have to study, automatically you will know what to study. What to study will be this much and you will be studying this much. And you think that this is a very, very difficult, complicated, long-drawn examination, which is not the case also. The best part of this ethics paper is that in the last 10 years, UPSC is repeating the questions, including this year. Every year they are repeating the same questions. And they are repeating the same ethics case studies also. Every year one case study will always be related to women. Out of 6 case studies. 2 case studies basically about individuals. 2 case studies about institutions. 1 case study in generic terms. 6 case studies are over. Every year they are doing the same thing. Every year. So it's not at all difficult, provided you have the right kind of direction. And that is what we try to do as part of our classes. As part of our classes. So this is what we'll be doing as part of our classes. If you have any doubts, you can ask about how we are going to proceed with the syllabus. I'll be giving you the study material also, but more than the study material, whatever that I dictate in the class will be more than sufficient for the entire syllabus. Our class notes will be more than sufficient. You don't have to study anything else, but I'll give you the study material also for your satisfaction. Otherwise, whatever I dictate will be more than sufficient. So if you have any doubts, you can ask. Around, we will try to complete in around 35-40 classes maximum. Weekly, minimum 4 classes. Each class duration will be around 2.5 hours. 2.5 hours. Otherwise, if we want, if we have time, we can have 5 classes also. Because, once we complete this, you can focus on your other parts, prelims and other things. Because ethics will be a mostly static subject. We'll try to complete it as soon as possible. Right? And we can start our classes from coming Monday. Coming Monday. Because some other students are also coming. So we'll start from Monday. It will be in the morning only classes. It can be around 10:30 or 11. It can be sent. Pardon? Why you have class? What? No problem. We'll do that. No problem. Right? So we will meet on Monday, and we'll start with the first topic. Right?